Okay. So yesterday we were discussing about the active directory components, right? We discussed about two components. One is physical components and logical components, and also we learned about the active directory structure. Correct. Now today we are going to learn about the active directory partitions. So when I say active directory partitions, this is when you have active directory database, right? This active directory database is called as ntds.dat. You can see this picture here. Here you have a file called ntds.dat. This one, this is your main active directory database file. Okay, ntds.dat means it is new technology directory service dot directory information tree. This is the file extension of the active directory database. If somebody asked you what is the ntds.dat or what is the active directory database, you have to tell ntds.dat is the active directory database. Okay, so for better management and to segregate the data based on the partitions, right, it has created multiple partitions. Okay, basically by default it will have only three partitions. One is configuration partition, another one is, sorry, schema partition, another one is configuration partition, third one is domain partition. So by default only three partitions will be there in the active directory. Okay, but this fourth one is the application partition. This will be coming only when you integrate any application with the active directory. When you integrate any application with the active directory, only then that comes. Okay, AD integration. Okay, means the schema partition, configuration partition, domain partition comes with by default. Okay, whether you create a users, whether you create a computers or not create, when you promoted a domain controller, these three partitions will be getting created by default. Okay, and the fourth one will be there only when you integrate any application along with the active directory. I'll take an example. Say for example, this active directory and the DNS. Okay, there is a service called DNS. I was telling in the maybe second class. DNS means it is domain naming system. We are human beings. For us, it is easy to remember the names but not the numbers. But the computers are only understand the zeros and ones. Correct, na? To make the job easy, what we will do, we will make use of the DNS and create some records, and whenever I call a host name, the DNS will provide the relevant IP address. It resolves the relevant IP address. Correct, right? That is the one. So this active directory will never work without the DNS. So DNS and active directory like husband and wife. So without the DNS, active directory does not work. So without the active directory, DNS will work, but active directory will not work without the domain naming system. So that's why when you install the active directory domain service, right, so the DNS will also be installed along with that. Even though you're not installing, you're not selecting the rule. If you look, once the active directory is installed and when you promoted the domain controller, if you go and check for the tools, right, there you will see DNS means the DNS will get installed automatically when you install the active directory. And when you install the active directory itself, that means we are going to integrate DNS with the active directory. So the partition of the application, the DNS will create a partition called application partition, because the DNS application will also happens along with the active directory application. Because say for example, when you have multiple DNS servers, so you create a record called facebook.com with an IP address 192.168.1.10. The same record will be replicated to all the DNS servers available in the network. So there should be some exchange, synchronization should happen, right? That sync will happen along with the active directory database replication. Correct? Because yesterday I was telling you, right? Like server DC01 is the replica of DC02, ADC, correct? Huh? Which is Hyderabad. Similarly, the one which is there RODC, that is also a replica of any of the domain controller. Means everything is similar. You log into any of the domain controller, you don't see any difference at all. If you go to microsoft.com, under that whatever OUC, the same thing will be there in the remaining domain controller as well. Means they are the replica of each other. The same thing happens here. That replication happens along with the Active Directory application. Okay, that is why this application partition comes when you integrate any application with the Active Directory. Is it is it clear or some confusion? So takeaway of this point is, don't think too much. You have to understand what is the database of the Active Directory. The database of the Active Directory is ntds.dat. That's all. If somebody asks you how many partitions will be there with Active Directory, you can tell by default there are three partitions: schema partitions, configuration partition, domain partition. And the last one is application partition. The fourth one is application partition. That partition will be created only when you integrate any application along with the Active Directory. If you don't integrate any application along with Active Directory, you will only have three, otherwise four partitions. Okay, that is the takeaway of this discussion. Now let us understand what what is the actual work and what actually stores in each partitions. Okay, the schema partition is the very important partitions. Okay, that is the main partition which stores your classes and attributes. Means if you create a computer object, it will be stored in the schema partition. You will create a username, that will also store in the schema partition. Okay, and the attributes of the same. When I take my name as a Manjunath, first name, last name is TG. Okay, the first name and the last name is the attributes of my name or my ID. Okay, and once my ID is created, we call that as a user. That user we also call it as a classes, whether the computer object or the user object or the groups object, right? We call it as classes, and the attribute means properties of it. So if I create a user called Abhishek, so Abhishek, the user, we call it as classes, and Abhishek properties are there like first name, last name, mobile number, his address. Those are all the attributes or the properties of it. Okay, that is the schema partition. Now you know schema is the important partition which stores the classes and attributes. That's all. And the second one is configuration partition. The configuration partition stores all the added and removed domain namespace. I was telling you, right? If you have 5 DNS servers, okay, if you are removing any existing DNS servers, that will be stored in the configuration partition. Or for now, you have 5 domain controller or 5 DNS servers. You are going to add an additional sixth DNS, domain naming system, DNS server. Okay, that time also it will make the changes. I mean, it will tell, okay, there are 5 DNS servers which is in one location. What is the region code? What is the network latency? Okay, what is the network length? All those things will be mentioned or stored in the configuration partition. Basically, all the configurations related to the sites and the DNS will be stored in the configuration partition. Any configuration for that matter, sites and services, subnets, everything that will be stored in the configuration partition. And the third one is domain partition. So domain partition stores the respective user accounts, the passwords, and the telephone numbers, etc. That is specific to the domain. Okay, so domain partition means it is also one of the partition, okay, that stores the user account and passwords. When I say manjunath.tg, that is my user account, okay, or the user. My account is like maybe manju tg, that is my username. Okay, you might have seen, right? If you are using already Outlook, your email ID will be like manju.tg at the rate uh, ibm.com or mercedes.com, correct na, or accenture.com, like that it will be there. But when you look at your name, the display name, it should be like tg comma manjunath, like that it will be there. So display name is different, user account is different. So that specific to the security, like user account, password, those information will be stored in the domain partition. So now you know the three partitions, the purpose. Okay, schema is the main partition which stores the classes and attributes. Configuration partition stores all the configuration related information. Domain partition stores the user account and the password related information. And the application partition, you know already, the application partition stores the application which is integrated with the Active Directory. Okay, it will not mix up with the Active Directory database, guys, basically, because that application is different entity altogether. But the Active Directory responsibility is to replicate the data for another domain controller or another DNS server when it is integrated along with the Active Directory. That is why what it will do, it is very systematic application. That is why it will never mix the unwanted things in its database. It will separately create a separate partition. Like you have guest room at your home, you will never allow the guest to sleep in their master bedroom or your normal rooms. Okay, na? You will dedicatedly have a room for a guest. Correct, right? Any guest comes, they can just stay there and they can just spend time. Correct, right? The same thing Active Directory also does the same thing. Okay. Any questions here? Okay, I'll take it as no. So this Active Directory works based couple of port number. Okay, Active Directory uses some important ports actually. Okay, this ports is nothing but, I already told you maybe in the first second class actually, ports are nothing but the doors in the computer. Okay, so the computer, any computer for that matter, okay, it will have around 65,555. I don't know why it is like this. 1 minute. It is uh, 55,000, sorry, 65,555 doors will be there. Okay, when I say a computer, so this will have n number of doors. That n number is nothing but 65,555, and each and every door will be used for its separate particular purposes. Say for example, port number 80. This port number 80 is used for to browse the internet, like www.facebook.com. When you enter, the traffic will goes via port number 80. Similarly, if you use 443 secured, okay, port number 443, then if you type www.https:/facebook, when you use yes, the secured, okay, that time it uses port number 443. Or you want to log into a remote computers. So I'm sitting in my home, I'm a user, I will raise a ticket to you, my application is not working. What you will do, you from your home using VPN, you will log into my computer remotely. Okay, that time if you want to log into my computer, you need a port number called 3389. 3389 is RDP port number. Okay, means each and every ports are dedicatedly used for different purpose, it will be used. Okay, like that the Active Directory also uses couple of ports. The very important one is 389, which is LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. Okay, that is the main protocol of Active Directory. If somebody asks you what is the Active Directory protocol, you have to tell it is LDAP, LDAP, LDAP. Okay, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, and the port number is 389. What kind of port it is, whether it is TCP or UDP, you can tell TCP or UDP. Fine. LDAP over SSL. Secured if you want, it is 636. Kerberos. When you enter the username and password, I told you, no, the query will go to the domain controller to check the username and password. That protocol is nothing but Kerberos. Kerberos means it is an authentication protocol. If somebody asks you what is authentication protocol of Active Directory, you have to tell it is Kerberos. Kerberos is nothing but port number 88. It is an authentication protocol. What do you mean by Kerberos? Kerberos means it is a black dog. It is a, I think it's a Latin word. Okay, Kerberos. So black dog. The meaning of the Kerberos is black dog. Okay. So the port number is 88, and then the DNS. Correct. Now see, DNS, domain naming system. I told you without the DNS, Active Directory will not work. That is why port number 53 DNS is mentioned here, and NTP. So NTP means it is network time protocol. The beauty of the Active Directory, you know what? Say for example, you have an environment called Microsoft.com. In that environment, if you have n number of computers, like you have 10 lakhs computers connected to the Microsoft.com domain. So the Active Directory is very sincere in that. Okay, it maintains the time in all the 10 lakhs computer is same. Now, if you see the clock, probably it is 1 9 o'clock 43 minutes 43 seconds. The same time will be there for all the 10 lakhs computers. There is not even a single second difference will be there. That is communicated on the NTP. New the network time protocol is there now, which is 123. That is the responsibility of 123. Okay, global catalog 326 RPC 135, and SMB 445. You have to remember, you have to mug up these port numbers. Definitely. Okay, these ports are very, very essential in every interview. At least 2 3 port number will be asked. Okay, any question with respect to explanatory ports? Okay, silence is no. And then terminologies. So couple of terminologies is there. Okay, like we understood what is domain, forest, all those things, right? Some technical terminologies will be used when we are learning about the Active Directory. The very first one is ntds.dat. What is this ntds.dat? It is the Active Directory database file, correct? Huh? NTDS means it is New Technology Directory Service. .dat means it is the file extension, means it is the directory information tree. It is the file extension of the Active Directory database. And then we have sysvol. Sysvol is nothing but system shared volume. Means it is a folder, okay, where, say for example, let me write here. Say for example, you have two domain controller. Okay, you have two domain controller. This is dc01. Why it is not writing? uh, it is dc02. Okay, so here sysvol folder will be there in each and every 1 second guys, I don't know why it is not working. So here also folder will be there, sysvol. Okay, you create a user here in the dc01. You create a user called Manju. Okay, so now this information I told everything will be in synchronize. If you have 10 domain controller, all the 10 domain controller are the same. You create a user in dc01, that will go and sit in the remaining 9 domain controller. You delete one user in one domain controller, that will be getting deleted in all the remaining 9 domain controller. Means everything is in sync. So anything, any data that has to be replicated, say for example Manju I just created, right? That information will go and sit in the sysvol folder. So this sysvol folder will share, or all the domain controller will take the information, sharing information from this sysvol folder only. Means any data that has to be replicated from or between the domain controller, that will be passed in the sysvol folder only. You can mention, see there, system shared volume stores the required information of the ADDS database to replicate in the network between the domain controller. Means any information you want to share, whether you want to create a user, delete a user, or whether you want to apply some group policy, you created a group policy in one domain controller, that information should be passed to remaining domain controller, right? Those data will be kept in the sysvol. Like it is courier service, I could say. If you want to send a courier from Bangalore to Hyderabad, we will just do courier. So courier will take care, it will reach us to the destination. The same thing, it is a place or a container, okay, it where we keep the information to exchange. And then the replication. See, replication means passing the information or passing the updates to the next domain controller, okay, or information exchange between the domain controller, we call it as replication. There are two types of replication. One is intra-site, another one is inter-site. When it is intra-site, say for example within Bangalore you have around 25,000 users. One domain controller is not enough, because there's many people logs in, logs off, and they application access, authentication request will be flooded for one domain controller. So thinking the performance and to increase the efficiency, you are adding additional two domain controller. Now in Bangalore itself, location itself, in your office itself, you have three domain controller. Now if the replication happens within that three domain controller in the Bangalore location, we call it as intra. And if the replication happens between Bangalore domain controller and the Hyderabad domain controller, two different sites, physical sites, that we call it as intersite. Intrasite means within the network, intersite means between the network. So site means already one physical location. You might have heard my friend has bought a site here, means he has bought one physical place. Correct? That is the terminologies. Any question here? Okay, silence is no. I'll move on. So now one more thing is the trust relationship. I don't think, I mean, trust relationship is nothing but enabling the trust among multiple domains. Say, for example, you have already heard Facebook, correct? And you already know maybe Instagram. Say, for example, Instagram or WhatsApp. So Microsoft has bought Instagram. So since Microsoft has bought Instagram, both Microsoft and Instagram are the same company now. I mean, they are under the same parent company, correct? Right? No. Now, Microsoft wanted to allow some of the Instagram users, whenever they access any kind of application which is hosted in the Facebook domain, they should be able to access. Similarly, a user from Facebook is trying to access an application which is hosted in the Instagram domain, correct? Huh? He should also be able to access. So, in order to enable this kind of access, we have to trust, we have to enable the trust. Okay. So, say for example, here Facebook and here Insta. Now, a user called manju@facebook.com is trying to access some application, okay, like http colon some videos.net, okay, videos.instagram.net something, okay. So now since the user facebook.com is belongs to Facebook, sorry, the user is belongs to facebook.com, but accessing the application called instagram.com. So now what we do, we will enable the trust relationship, like we will enable in the active directory trust relationship, that is two-way transitive trust relationship. Means server, mean the Facebook can trust Instagram. Similarly, Instagram can also trust Facebook. Means I am trusting you and you are trusting me. That is called as forest trust. And transitive means, I am trusting you and you are also similarly parallel, you are also trusting me, means it is two way. That is why we call it as two-way forest trust, because Facebook is a different forest, Instagram is a different forest, or Facebook is a different forest, Microsoft is a different forest. Here we are establishing the trust between two different forest entities, correct na? That is why we call it as forest trust. Understood?
Yes.
Okay. So then external trust. So external trust means, now say for example you have facebook.com 2022 operating system 2022, but Insta has got 2016. Now I don't want to have the domain here, but I want to have the operating system level, or I could say in the facebook.com only have two versions of active directory. Okay, some domain controllers are 2019, some are 2022. Okay, now here between 2019 and 2022, you are going to establish the trust. Okay, if you establish the trust between two different version of active directory, okay, such trust relationship we call it as external trust. Realm is there. Realm means between two different platform. Like you have Windows and Linux. Windows is Active Directory, Linux is some other identity and access management services there. Or between Windows and Novel, or between Novel and Linux. Okay. Like this, if you are establishing the connection or the trust between two different platform, identity and access management platform, such relationship we call it as realm trust. And the last one is shortcut trust. So what do you mean by shortcut? Say for example, one minute, let me. Okay. So say for example, now you have facebook.com. Let me take microsoft.com. This is uh, So this is, say for example, this is Bangalore, Microsoft.com, Microsoft.com. Here DC01, DC02, this is DC03. Similarly, you have Hyderabad also. This can be like this is also like Microsoft.com only. This is DC05, DC06, DC07. So normally when you enable the forest trust, na, you will enable between the sites or between the forest. Okay. That time either DC05 can talk to DC01 or DC5 can talk to DC02 or DC05 can talk to DC03. Means the selection of the domain controller is left to the forest itself. Whatever is responding it quickly, it will talk to them. But in case of shortcut, it is not like that. You specifically mention, okay, DC01 from Microsoft.com Hyderabad should be able to have the connection between the DC05 of Hyderabad Microsoft.com. Means since you are mentioning the which domain controller from this region or location to talk to the another location, means you are specifically calling out the particular server names or the server IP address specifically. Okay. Other servers, say for example, now DC02 is trying to talk to DC07 here. He should not be able to directly talk. He should send the information to DC01 stating that I want to talk to DC07. Then DC07, if say for example, I want to reset the password. Example, he will tell DC02 will tell to DC0 I want to reset the password of DC07 here. So he will ask, DC02 will ask here, this person will log DC05 and then DC05 will talk to DC07. Means there is no direct interaction. You have to follow the protocols. You have to follow the edge servers there. Whatever servers you are calling out, the client, you have to, the information should pass along with the with respect to the same servers, not other servers. Clear? That is shortcut. Means you are specifically mentioning which two domain controller can talk to each other between the sites, okay, or between the domain. So that is called as shortcut trust. Okay, you see here the trust between a forest to child of another forest. Okay, now let me make it even more. This is not India. I mean, it is not MS. This is India dot Microsoft.com. Now it is clear. Microsoft.com DC01, DC02 want to talk to India.microsoft.com DC07. That time DC02 from MS cannot talk to the DC07 of India.ms.com. He has to talk to the DC01 because he is the designated server who has got trust between the domain. So that's why DC01 will tell DC05 that my DC02 want to talk to DC07. Then the meeting will be arranged or the exchange of the information will be arranged as per the protocol. Okay, this is how the trust relationship works. For you, you don't have to worry about this. You should only know there is a concept called trust. That's all. Forest, between two different forests. External, between two different versions. And realm, between two different platform. And shortcut, specific domain controller in child domain and the main domain. Okay. And the last option is FSMO roles. This is very, very important. Any interview for that matter, active directory, this question should be 100% or 200% asked. Okay. FSMO roles. So FSMO roles are nothing but the flexible single master operations roles. Means in order to active directory work properly. Okay. If you any question?
Yes, sir. Actually, I have a doubt that
Yeah.
in trust relation, why can't DC03 talk to India MS like Microsoft.com
Where? Trust shortcut.
in trust relationship?
Yeah. Which shortcut trust? Huh?
Yes, sir.
See,
DC03 is there now.
correct.
So why can't it directly talk to India Microsoft.com?
So that's what shortcut means. You don't want all the domain controller to initiate the traffic.
Okay, okay,
Say
okay,
in your
okay.
house, who is the decision maker? Your father is the decision maker, correct? Huh? So
Hmm.
if you want to, if say for example, you want to buy a bike, you cannot talk to your father. You will tell your mom, and your mom will talk to your father, and he will get the things done. The same
Oh,
protocol will be followed here. Means we will keep only one person in the family is a decision maker. His decision is final. Correct? Na?
oh,
The same
oh,
applicables here. Means he can talk but not directly. You have to talk indirectly.
okay, sir.
Okay. The request should go as per the protocol I said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that is one thing. And now let us understand the FSMO. So FSMO means it is single flexible single master operations roles. There are 5 FSMO roles. There are 5 roles in the Active Directory. Okay. So 5 roles are designated different work. I mean, delegate. They will work. They will have their own work actually in the Active Directory. Okay. Out of 5 roles, 2 are forest-wide role, 3 are domain-wide role. Forest means when I say Microsoft.com, correct? Huh? The very first domain controller will have all the 5 roles in it. Say for example, yesterday we built one server na dc01.microsoft.com. When you look for the FSMO roles in it, all the 5 roles will be there in the dc01.microsoft.com because that is your forest. Forest server will have both forest and domain, both. But if you create a new child domain like india.microsoft.com, at that time if you check the FSMO role, it will only show you 3 roles in the india.microsoft.com and 2 roles are coming from the for microsoft.com. Okay, so I will show you maybe day after tomorrow, not day after tomorrow, maybe next Monday. I'm going to promote 2 domain controllers in front of you, and I will show you how to check and how to move the FSMO role from one server to another server. Okay, now let us understand what is this roles and what is the importance of each and every role. Okay, so there are 5 roles I said. One is schema master, another one is domain naming master. So schema master, it is a very important role. I was explaining, while doing the partition. So schema partition was there. Similarly here schema master is there. Both are important. The schema master is one per forest. If you have a forest called Microsoft.com, there is a one schema master available in the entire forest. And this is rarely used. Means when you want the schema master usage, so say for example you have server 2016 domain controller, and if you are trying to add only the server 2016 domain controller, you will not even use the schema master. When some time comes, 2016 is going out of support, you have to install the 2022 as the domain controller latest operating system version. Then the schema change need to be happen. That time only the schema master is useful. Otherwise, even though this computer is shut down, schema master older server is shut down, you will not have any business impact. And then second one is domain naming master. Domain naming master means it is at your DNS server. Okay, so that is your DNS server. So say for example, you want to add a new DNS server, or you want to remove an existing DNS server, or you want to add an additional domain controller, or you want to remove an existing domain controller. That time this domain naming master will be useful. If you are not adding or removing the DNS or the domain controller, even though this server is shut down also, you will not have immediate impact. You can run the business. Active Directory will work as it should work, as it will work, no impact. So these two are the forest wide roles. Okay, and then we have domain wide roles. Domain wide roles means each and every domain will have, means if you search in the ms.com microsoft.com, if you search, you will have all the 5 roles are there. Okay, 2 are forest, 3 are domain wide. But if you check in the india.com, you will only see 3 domain wide role. Okay, and this 2 will be falling from the microsoft.com only, which are forest wide role. Okay, because I told you they are common for the entire forest. And if you look at here, microsoft.com is your root forest. I mean, forest name is microsoft.com, but the child is india.microsoft.com. That is why it is just inheriting, or it is just using the forest wide roles to the child domain. Okay, and there are 3 roles. One is relative identifier, means any object that you create in the Active Directory. Say for example, if you create a new user, that user will have an RID, means relative identifier. I told you, computer will not understand with the username. If I just type Manju, Active Directory will not understand. So that Manju will have an associated identifier. With that identifier we call it as relative identifier. Okay, means when you create a user, that user will be assigned a particular number. That number we call it as RID, and this RID master is responsible for having enough number of RIDs to create new classes and attributes, or new objects and, yeah, new classes, sorry, new objects, means users, computer, groups. Okay, to create everything will have its own number. Any user, any computer, any group, if you create, that will have its own number. That is called as RID master. And RID master is responsible for maintaining the RID pool. When you create a domain controller, that time that RID will be starting with 50,000, means it will give a pool of 50,000 RIDs. Once it is start consuming 45,000 RIDs, right, then the RID master will talk internally and increase that 45,000 to again 50,000. That is the job of the RID master. Until and unless if the RID is lack of RID, this, even though this server is shut down also, you will not have any problem. Or if you want to, yeah, or one more thing, uh, yeah, that's all correct. If it is shut down also not a problem, until unless you have enough RID pools. The fourth one is PDC emulator, or we also call it as primary domain controller emulator, or PDC emulator. So this is one for domain. This is the very important FSMO role, because if you shut down this PDC, right, within fraction of minutes you will start issues. Say for example, the importance of the PDC is, the PDC is responsible for the password synchronization. Means you change the password, okay, by logging into the DC001. Okay, here you will just change the password XXXX. So the PDC, what it will do, immediately it will send the information to DC02 and DC03. The user called Manju just change the password. Please take this is his new password. This is his new password. If the PDC is down, he will not send the updated information to DC03 and DC02. That time you go for a break and comes back. Then you try to log in. When you hit the username and password and hit enter, right, that time if the authentication goes here, either DC03 and DC02 or DC02, those DC03 and DC02 will have the old password. So they doesn't have the latest password, they have the old password. But now you are trying with a new password which you changed in the DC01 here, but that new password is not replicated here, correct now, but you are now trying with the new password, but this 03 and 02 does not have any clue on the new password. What they will tell, the password you are trying to enter is invalid, invalid, invalid. Three times it will tell invalid. Fourth time if you try, it will say your account is logged out. So when you shut down, or when you don't have the PDC, right, working, you will immediately have the lockout issues. Within fraction of minutes, 2 3 minutes only, you will have the account lockout issues. People will start complaining, I'm not able to log in. Okay, I'm not my password is incorrect, it is telling my account got locked out. Lot many issues will be start coming there. Okay, that is the PDC. Another one is the time synchronization. I told all the 10 lakhs computer in the microsoft.com will have the same timing. When the PDC is not there, the time will also be, and it will not be in the synchronization, the time difference will be there. The timing is very important in the Active Directory, because any changes that happens, right, that change conflict will be managed using the timestamp. Okay, so the time synchronization will not be there. Account lockout issues will also be coming when you have the PDC down. If somebody asks you which is the important role in Active Directory FSMO, you have to tell PDC is the important role in FSMO, because that is directly responsible for the password synchronization, account lockout issues, and also the time synchronization. These 3 points you have to tell. And then last one is infrastructure master. So infrastructure master means it is like the team leader in your class. He know about him also, how much he will study, how much how good he is in math, how good he is in physics, how good he is in science. partially he know how others also reads. Correct? Na? Means he know about himself, also partially about the others. Means if you have three domains, in this example, two domains are there. One is Microsoft.com, another one is India.Microsoft.com. So this infrastructure master, he know about Microsoft.com as well, and partial information of the India.Microsoft.com also, like how many sites are there, how many users are there, okay, what is the network latency is there, okay, how many network distance is there, what is the cost, all those things information will be known by the infrastructure master as well. Means we call him as I mean, he know his information as well as others' information. That is the work of the infrastructure master, and that is also one per domain. So now, if you want to check, how can you check the FSMO roles in the domain controller? There is a command called net dom query FSMO. You go to the command prompt inside the domain controller. If you run in if you run in the what is that any of the jump server on your local machine, you will not see it. You have to run this command in the domain controller, or you have to specify which domain it is. Then you will see the number of the domain the FSMO role information. Tomorrow I'll show you that. Okay, this is the same thing covered here. PDC is what, RAD is what, infrastructure is what. See the same thing I covered there. Okay, that's all about the FSMO. Any question here? Let me stop the
Yeah,
recording.
Manju, there is too much of theoretical, right? Is there any way we can understand better with the picture or any of